Boom. And we are live. I am joined by President of the Beast DevelopMental uh, business, the father of Kelly Oubre Jr., and an author, Kelly Oubre Sr. Thank you for coming on and giving me your time.
Thanks, Max. I appreciate your time, buddy. I really do.
One of the first things I always do, if there's a lot of listeners that are loyal here, they know that what I'm about to ask is, how are you doing? One thing I learned about 2020 is you can't take any day for granted. Everything's changing, evolving, strange times. So first of all, how are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for asking. I look at it as being malleable. I've come through some things in my life, and I could consider them adverse, but I think it was strengthening. It was like practice. I think every day is a new day for us to practice a little bit more to be better for tomorrow. So 2020 was, I would say it was okay. I mean, I realized there was some troubles, but I think we learned a lot about ourselves if we learned nothing about anybody else.
It's like a hard practice, so the game is easy, right?
Exactly.
So let's dive right into it. So first of all, let's dive into your business, Beast DevelopMental.
Yes,
tell my audience, what is it? How did it get started? What is it about?
I got a housekeeping issue. I want you to mimic my movements, okay? Rub your hands together. Show me your palms. Show me the back. Show me the palms. All right, now we can go, because that symbolizes I operate with clean hands, Max. What I tell you is from my heart, or it's not something I pulled out of the sky. I read in a book somewhere. It's something that I live. I've grown to learn to, I guess, practice what I preach and try not to lie, because I can't remember the lie I told yesterday if I decide to lie. So I try to operate with clean hands. I just ask that people do the same with me. That's all.
Right.
To your question, Beast Developmental, basically the concept started back roughly between 20 and 25 years ago when Kelly was born. And 12/9/95 was his born on date. And I think, 5 years in, I was like, I'm kind of a nature buff. I like history. So how can I put my son in a position, from the beginning to be a success in the future that he can reference back to once I tell him these stories of how he came to be in the path that I put him on early in life. So for your listening audience, I think looking at our history kind of can put some things that we deal with today into perspective, and especially with our social justice issues and movements, whatever side of the fence you sit on or stand on, that's fine. Teach his own. That's why we're in America. I looked at things like the Agoge principle, AGOGE principle, when it came to Kelly, because the Agoge principle was something throughout time with your different principalities or your different civilizations in how they orchestrated the engineering or the growth process of the young men in the society. If you saw the movie 300, you
Yes.
saw what the young men, that's a fan favorite, one of mine too, Gladiator, a lot of things with Hannibal in Africa, the Kemetic mystery schools in Egypt. Kemet is another word for Egypt or Africa. The young men, the Dinka tribes, when they have to go out and kill a lion as a young boy, they put you out there. You got to do it. If you don't, you don't pass into the passage of manhood. So the Agoge principle was something I used to read a lot about, because it was almost like a young man's rite of passage in his current society that he lived in. So I says, how can I duplicate that for my son when it's the right time? The best I could do without looking like a total crazy person, he wasn't going to walk out there and go kill a lion with his bare hands, because that daddy's crazy. So what I did earlier in life, I put him in Taekwondo, karate, so he could understand, the discipline principles of not only Taekwondo, but basically kind of like sparring, getting used to the physicality of life and his young boyhood, and just pushing those parameters physically, as well as controlling himself mentally and emotionally. After he got punched in the mouth, he realized, it didn't kill me. So let me get up, and this can either be fun or I'm quitting right now, Daddy. So it got kind of fun to him. So he got his black belt, Max. And that meant a lot at the time at 8 years old, because for me, it was a reference point, and it was tying into the model that I was trying to lay a foundation for, with some Agoge principles tied in there, with respect, gratitude, moderate exercise, basically, kind of becoming one with yourself. So you know yourself, so you're comfortable in intense situations sometimes. And of course, this stuff was all new to him because he was so young. But as I refer back to it now, it kind of brings him back to center as to the accomplishment he had in the past with a black belt. And basically, it's something he could move on to and be proud of throughout his young life. So
now, I actually that's the first sport I ever did. So I'm a young man, 23 years old, but the first thing I ever did was 4 years old. My father got me into mixed martial arts. I did jiu-jitsu, I did wrestling, I did Muay Thai, I did boxing. I loved it. But what I never realized until recently was it wasn't about necessarily the skill to defend myself. It was about the principles that I learned that translate to life. And it's that you don't give up. It's this guy will knock you down. You'll get, like you said, get hit in the mouth, but you get up. And so what I've noticed in life is you could be doubted. People will overlook you. Things will happen that you can't control, but it's about how you respond, not versus how you react. And that's something that martial arts taught me. So do you feel that principle that Kelly learned at a very young age, it's what's helped him become so successful in so many different situations?
Yes, I do wholeheartedly because I've seen it in real time. At Beast DevelopMental, which is, like I said, was a concept that started basically at the inception of his birth, I had to find out or develop a blueprint for him, a personal blueprint. He is a direct replica or the representation of Beast DevelopMental, the concept. And to your question, I would say yes. It has benefited him greatly throughout the years. I've watched it so many different ways. I've watched it in not only to Taekwondo because he wanted to quit. Got to be full disclosure here. I told you, clean hands.
Yeah.
He wanted to quit towards the end because he was getting burned out. And I made a deal with him. I think he had like a belt or two left to go. So he had been in it roughly a year and 6 months. Okay. So he said, Dad, look, I don't want to do this anymore. I says, well, look, I'll make a deal with you. Get your black belt. And after that, you don't have to get any more degrees with it. You can play whatever you want to play. You can play the piano. I don't care what you do. I'll support you. And it's not a money thing. I'm a bankroll, whatever you got going on or whatever you're going to do. Sorry. And just get there because I have a plan in place and I'll be here every step of the way with you so you can execute your plan. So he says, okay, okay. Well, he saw the end. He saw the end, and to segue into something else. So it wasn't a hard sell at all because I noticed throughout his life, things like basketball practice never was a hard sell. He was seeking out the competition. So it wasn't me, because people always ask me, was it you doing that or was it him? I says, no, it was him because he saw the value and the love and how he wanted to conquer and move on to the next thing. And I think that was a good backdrop with Taekwondo. So not only that, I saw it in school. I saw it with adverse moments like with Hurricane Katrina. We left New Orleans the day before and he had to, basically pick up and move and go into a new place in the 4th grade, and I kind of saw the light switch go off in his head after a while where I could really pick up where I left off, so to speak, in a foreign state. Because I kind of got him in the gym as quick as possible because Lifetime Fitness was offering a special to the new people in town. I didn't want to call us refugees or whatever the names were for the Katrina people, but I never saw myself as a victim, and Kelly never saw himself as a victim. So it was like, okay, we're in a new place. Let's just pick up where we left off. So my thing was, I knew, let's get to the best gym we could get to as quick as possible so I can get him back to somewhat normalcy as quickly as possible. So they offered a special for the first month. Those new people in town, you'll come here, you can relax, decompress for a month for free. And ironically, Max, I saw a lot of pros working their kids out there while I was working Kelly out. Because something about Texas and Florida, you get the benefits of tax breaks. I think no state tax, if I'm not mistaken. So it was nice to see, some of these kids were his age. Some were a little older. And their daddies who were former pros who I recognized, coming up through the ranks. I mean, you got Clyde Drexler. Wow. Hakeem Olajuwon. You got Andre Ware was in the gym. Broderick Thomas was in the gym. At the time, a kid named Tierre Brown, who played for the Raptors at the time, was playing basketball with us. Kelly was right there. He started getting into the games as he was growing and getting bigger. So Kelly started playing against pros when he was, I guess, sixth grade, fifth, sixth grade.
Wow.
So he was cute at first, but then he realized his body started changing, Max. And he was getting good. He was a lefty. He was getting longer, and he was holding his own.
Yeah.
So it helped. It helped a great deal.
Okay, so let me ask you this. You go from New Orleans, you go to Texas. Kelly Oubre has a foundation of sports. You've instilled this mentality with him. When did you realize, oh, Kelly Oubre, my son, he has it? Like, this could be his path. What was it? Was it a time? Was it a practice? Was it a game? When did you realize he has it?
Very good question. I'm going to tell you why. Because just like I told you how we got to Texas and what we started doing, the segue to transition was easier from the eighth grade going into the ninth grade, because he had already seen the country with AAU basketball on the Nike and Adidas circuits. So Kelly must have traveled with various AAU teams leading up to the eighth grade summer going into the ninth grade. I guess maybe 40, 50 times. He had already ventured out of Texas and all over the country, out of the country, Hawaii, stuff like that. So it was an easier transition, because what happened was Max, he was already playing with upper level competition, and against them, future five stars. The guys who were in the league his age, he saw them when they were babies.
Right.
So this is like a fraternity to these guys. They know each other. They've known each other their whole life. So when he started high school, and I tell people the transition comes, a kid can be the best thing since sliced bread until the ninth grade. Because everybody can shoot. Everybody probably plays for their daddy. And their daddy tells them, what they want to hear, you the man. But when you meet that kid around the corner you never saw before in high school, you know who the man is on that. Yeah. So that summer right there, because what I noticed that he very rarely had another bad game 2 games in a row, because he was so used to the physicality of playing with and against pros and college guys. So right. To that point. And when I say playing against them, Max, I'm talking 4 or 5 times a week. They're going at it. And one thing about the physicality, back to Taekwondo, it never was a big deal for him once he realized it wasn't going to kill him. And, then going into high school, he already had, letters waiting for him at the high school that he enrolled in. And wow. I noticed something funny, because a lot of the postmarks were dated back a couple of months. So the coach was holding on to the letters and giving them out maybe 5 at a time. But I kept looking at the postmarks, and I knew this guy was sitting on these letters at the high school. So I called him one day. I said, can you just send all the letters? Because he won't get the big head. I can see to that, because he's already on a trajectory going into high school where he's above his peers already.
Right.
And known to the school, so it's no funny business. So the segue was easier because of the physicality that came before he got to high school. So that 8th to 9th grade summer was a very telling time, because it's the first time he ever really dunked on somebody, because we kind of formulated this little thing called the tip drill, where he gets close to you, and instead of swiping down, he swipes up. See, because the ref is less inclined to call a foul if you swipe up.
Right.
Right. And if you swipe down, it's obvious. So I said, Kelly, I guarantee, trust me, if you do that to the point guard 2 times, he won't want to handle the ball in front of you anymore, because he'll be embarrassed. You'll take his heart, and he'll be happy to get off the ball as quick as possible when you come around again. And it worked all the way through Kansas. Go back and look at the footage.
Okay. So when you have a talent like Kelly, and okay, he has it, and he's on that path, how important is situation? Like playing for the right AAU team or playing for the right high school team? How important was it for you to put him in that position to make sure he stays on that trajectory?
It was important, but I'm going to tell you, I maintained control the whole time, because I let it be known when he joined the organization, if they recruited him, all his debt will be paid for in sweat equity. So don't think because I didn't go in there asking for anything. I didn't want any money. I didn't want any inducements. All I wanted was a stage for my son. And a lot of parents just wanted to hear at that point in time, your son is special. He is pro potential. A lot of enough, and that's what I deal with a lot with Beast Developmental. And my parents, they always think they have time because some guru anointed their child very early. He's the best third grader in the country. That's like, really? I hear this every day, all day. Until wake up time comes in 11th grade and you realize, you know what? I'm not good at this at all anymore because everybody's body has changed and I'm not growing anymore or something to that effect. But I think that was that one-itis that the parent, sadly enough, pigeonholed the kid into with the mindset with that you the man speech on the way to the game and on the way home that kind of inhibited a lot of kids who were anointed too early. So what I would always do is I just manufactured a hunger. I never was a fan of Kelly, but I always was his trusted advisor. Delivered information in real time. And that's one of my principles of Beast Developmental. To position parents or those very close to the young diamond, who I call my athletes, I call them diamonds, as a trusted advisor. Because a trusted advisor can't be compromised. No amount of money, no amount of inducement, no amount of influence can make that trusted advisor deviate from the path of seeing that young diamond is a success.
Right.
So, and he's known that about me his whole life. He can't say that for anybody else.
Now, okay, so how much has your business approach helped this whole process? Because I've not known you very long, but just off the conversation we're already having and knowing your story, doing some research, you have a very business-like approach to your decisions, and you weigh out the goods and the bads, and it's very calculated and very cerebral.
Machiavellian.
Yeah, how has that helped everything? Because it seems like you've put that thought process to everything in every stage of his life.
Well, see, I've always mastered the word no. Because where others were looking for the accolades or the praise, you're a good daddy, that means nothing to me. Because my next question is, okay, I'm a good daddy. Either what do you want or who sent you? Because, see, I'm very, through that period, Max, I'm just trying to take you back with snapshots and trying to give you an insight of how I do business.
Right.
I didn't take pictures with a lot of people. I didn't want to be out front with my intentions and my motives. I would always give kids a kind word at the game about something they could tweak a little bit in a respectful way. But I never was overbearing, my way or the highway. I always let coaches coach. I was smart enough to know that within these organizations, to give you an example, Max, one of the best teams in Houston, I was working a night shift. I worked 3 jobs at one time. I was doing a security work at night. I got off at 7. The night before, the guy who ran the organization says, well, look, we're across town. Can you work the clock for us today? Because some of the parents Kelly wasn't even playing that day. All right. It was our younger team that was playing. But some of those parents already had felt that they had arrived already. But I'm a hoop head. I'll sit in the gym all day long. And it could be the worst game in the world. I could sit there and watch it because I just love it.
You love it.
It's like a release for me. So the guy called me, says, can you work the clock for me today? And see, I never asked for any money, and I never looked at it as like anything other than a favor. And I didn't have anything to do that day. I stand corrected. Kelly and them played later on that day, like at about maybe 2 o'clock.
Okay.
I mean, there for 7. Okay. So I says, as long as I work the clock for you all day long, if you need me to, as long as I can leave and go pick Kelly up and come back and bring him to the gym so they can be ready for their game. He says, fine. I got there. That was the guy who ran the organization, but that wasn't the owner of the organization. So I get there, strangely enough, and I see the owner. We make eye contact when I'm at the desk coming inside. And for some strange reason, I guess the guy thought I wanted to get in for free. And I didn't fault him for that because he's a great guy, and I owe him a lot with Kelly's success because he provided, like I said, he provided a stage for Kelly at the highest possible. And, I paid my way in. I paid my way in to work the clock for the organization because it was a no-brainer for me because I wasn't there for anything but to help the organization
Right.
and to contribute to the greater good. So I didn't walk in there with my chest poked out. Kelly was in the ninth grade at the time, and the other guys were in the eighth grade going into the ninth grade. So I worked the clock all day, and I talked to the guy who ran the organization after. I says, I wasn't trying to get in for free this morning because he kind of shooed me off that morning. And because we made eye contact, I spoke to him, and he just shooed me off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay. I still never held a grudge because with this business, Max, I had to keep a thick skin, and I couldn't hold stupid, petty grudges, especially with miscommunication or misinterpretations. All I wanted and needed was a stage for the boy. I could prepare. I'll get him ready to be. He'll be ready to play. I just need the biggest stage with the brightest lights possible at the earliest age, and he'll be fine.
It reminds me of like Mufasa. Like it's just like the symbolism behind it. It's just you see the future before it's happening. You just know the stage, the position you have to put Simba in. It's just incredible. So let's go through the thought process. So you have a bunch of letters that come into the office. Coaches are getting letters. Kelly Oubre is getting tons of attention. The right eyes looking at him. You guys sit down. What was that conversation like? What made you choose Kansas?
Well, you get 5 official visits. You know that, right?
Yes.
Well, we took one.
Ooh.
I can't speak for everybody, Max. Once again, I think backwards sometimes. I'm a little different. I got to late night in the fog. Kelly came in from Findlay to late night into fog. I went from Houston to late night in the fog. I met him there. All right. We sit down. We enjoy the festivities. He goes off and he does whatever he's going to do. You know how they do when they go on recruiting visits. Don't smile. Don't smile. You know what happens. Stop. I go off and I got to schmooze with the coaches and play the game, right? Mm-hmm. But it took me out to dinner and they introduced me to what deer fries were. I never knew what deer fries were. I had one and it was like, okay. And everybody started laughing. So, you know what you're eating, right? I says, no, deer fries. I said, what is a deer fry? It's deer testicles.
Whoa.
Cut in slivers and fried, right? I'm like, okay. So I had one. I tasted one. This is okay. But anyway, all right, whatever. But my thing is, in my mind, I'm not going to curse on anything. In my mind, hey, man, let's get to the business.
Right.
They started talking, so, lightweight, first recruit. They knew it was our first recruiting visit, our first official visit. Talked a little bit, met the head coach once. I talked to him on the phone once, during the recruiting visit. And I met Kelly back after that meeting. It was small talk. That's all it was, small talk. They knew I had 4 more visits if we chose to take them. And as far as they knew, we were going on 4 more visits to 4 more colleges. So I see Kelly again, and me and the coach are riding around campus. And I pick Kelly up at the dorm, and I says, Kelly, what do you think? He says, I like it here a lot, Dad. The coach says, I'm prepared to make an official offer to you. We'd be happy to have you, and you can fill in for the guy who's leaving. Okay, fine. And if you commit to us, we won't recruit another wing at your position. Like, okay, all right. So we wound up not committing that day, but I said, Coach, give us a couple of days because Kelly had to go from Kansas, to USA basketball in Colorado at 6 a.m. the next morning to train for the weekend. From there, USA basketball, Kelly went back to Findlay Prep in Henderson, Nevada to go back to school. I go back to Houston. I says, Kelly, I'll call you Tuesday. We'll talk about everything. I call him Tuesday. I said, what do you think? He says, no, Daddy, what do you think? I says, well, I know what we're going to get at 4 more places, but this is what I see that you're going to get here. You're going to be surrounded by upperclassmen at all other 4 positions because that's just how the system is. It's built on upperclassmen and guys that stay around longer than 1 year. There's always outliers, like the 2 guys that came the year before that he was replacing one of them. So I said, you're not going to get that everywhere you go. You probably get a couple of sophomores sprinkled in there who want to get their shine on. And, will control the ball because they think that they're upperclassmen at a sophomore level because they're probably used to being one and dones anyway. These guys just happen to hang around. So I said, as far as I'm concerned, I've seen all I needed to see. Because once again, forward thinking. I see the opportunity Max, I see the stage and I see the opportunity to be one and done, like the guy he's replacing, who he happens to be playing on the team with right now, with the Golden State Warriors. So I'm looking at this whole thing, and I'm not making rash decisions. I'm including him in the process. So I'm not strong-arming anything, but I'm painting the picture for him like I've always done as his trusted advisor. Okay? So he trusts me. He trusts my foresight because it allows him to go and have fun and play and just be a kid, be a teenager, do whatever he needs to do and grow into his young manhood. So that was the situation with the recruiting. It was very short-lived because I wasn't going to waste 4 other coaches' time and go eat up all their food and schmooze with them, and I wasn't serious about their universities. I didn't think that was fair to them.
Right.
Or to anyone, especially Kelly, to drag him around just to say, look at me, I'm special. Somebody thinks I'm special. No, I've been telling you your whole life you're special. So somebody else is not going to validate what I've been saying your whole life. I'm going to choose the best fit for you, for the right reasons.
Right. And clearly it worked. And clearly it's worked. Now, let me ask you this first of all, thank you for your time again. Kelly Oubre Sr. joining us. Let me ask you the basketball junkie type questions. So he is such a unique player because he has unbelievable athleticism. He has great length. He has guard skills. He can guard big. His versatility is what makes him truly unique. So how did he develop that skill set? Is that something that you focused on? Was it a growth spurt? And you said, hey, let's get you to handle a little bit more like a guard. Take me through how he developed that versatility.
It's funny because I coached him in middle school. And we used to have practice at 6 in the morning from 6 to 7. And I used to make him with this drill where the offensive guy would dribble to half court and turn around and attack the defense. Because normally 1 or 2 defenders was trailing him, and they knew to be in a defensive position once he turned around at half court, once he passed the cones. It was one guy, one-on-one. I would put 2 guys on Kelly on defense and 3 guys on Kelly on defense. So he would dribble to half court, full speed, turn around, and attack the defense. Now, what I would do is I'd cut off half the court. So you couldn't dribble in a big, long half circle and go to your comfort zone. I would start the left side, and make him use the right side, and make him use his right hand to attack because he couldn't use his strong hand, his left hand. I would draw a line down the center of the court, the center of the lane, and make him attack with his right hand, his weak hand, on 3 defenders at one time. And he hated me every morning for it. Didn't know what I was doing, but my guys, it was a private school. So it was a bunch of young, white kids who parents were rich, but I wanted them to enjoy the experience too. And I let that be known. I told them everything I was doing. I says, I'm going to push y'all harder than anybody has ever pushed y'all. Okay? Because this may be your first and last time you play basketball, but I want you to understand the game when you watch it from here on out if you never choose to play again. So I'm going to make you play offense and I'm going to make you play defense. And I had 20 kids on the team, Max.
Wow.
And everybody played every game. I guarantee parents, everybody's going to play every game. Now, 5 or 6 of them became my young assistant coaches because they realized they didn't want to play basketball. Their mom and daddies was making them do something at 6 in the morning. Just get out of the house, But it was so fun because Kelly was learning.
Yeah.
I was coaching, and they were playing.
You're a chess player. You know how to put.
Actually, I'm a Jenga player.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't do chess checkers. I play Jenga. You know what that means?
When you pull the pieces out.
What happens if you mess up?
You fall.
That's it. Like I said, let's cut to the chase. Let's get down to the business.
Yeah, you fall. Okay, I like that. Then you have to think multiple steps ahead, forward thinking. Okay.
Right.
So let me ask you this. So one thing that I've also noticed is, no, you know what? Before I actually get to that question, let me ask you this. This whole time you've been talking about how you've been giving, you've been thinking, how could you put him in a position to succeed? Let's just focus on you for a second.
Right.
What was that feeling when he gets drafted in the NBA? 15th overall pick? What was that feeling like? All that hard work paid off. What was that? What was going through your head, Kelly's head? What was that experience like?
The toughest part was not knowing where he would go, what draft pick he would go with. I wanted him, honestly, if it wasn't, he wanted to go to Charlotte, the Bobcats, because he wanted to go to North Carolina, and he couldn't go there because, strangely enough, one of his summer ball teammates, he was already on their radar, and that kid's mom told North Carolina, if y'all recruit Oubre, we're not coming. Which is what parents do. Man, they try to secure the bag or secure the opportunity for their own kids first. So I wasn't mad at the parents for doing that. It's just, hey, you get in where you fit in, basically. So he wanted to play because he idolizes Michael Jordan, and it's almost like not a butt kissing idolization. It's more the fact that Michael Jordan has transcended in so many ways. He's not in anybody's box, and there will never be another at that level because I don't think the powers that be will allow it to happen again. So, man, his logo, but the other guys, you can put all their logos in a bag and they won't hold any weight. So I think just looking at it that way, draft night was hectic because I didn't know where he was going, but I knew we belonged in the green room the whole time. And his mom looked at me, and she kind of let me run everything because we had separated when Kelly was a baby. I had custody of him since he was 3 years old, so I was able to work my magic. So she was there at the draft, and he wanted her to be there to enjoy the moment. And she asked me, "Why aren't you crying?" And I looked at her. I said, "I'm all cried out. I've been crying for 8 years. We've been in Houston for 8 years since Katrina. I have no more tears because, Max, it took every fiber of my being to drop him off at the airport to go on those 40 trips to AAU tournaments, and I couldn't go with him because I had to stay back and work 2-3 jobs to make sure we had a house and food. So we're talking about sacrifices along the way. We're talking about, people try to, paint the single parent narrative or the picture. Well, how about doing that? And I'm not saying I'm not Superman, but my margin for error was 0. I had to get it right, Max. There was no getting it wrong here. I had to deal with obstacles, and he had to deal with obstacles because he wasn't the kid from that state. Therefore, he wasn't viewed as one of their own. So he had to work for everything he got. And the funny thing is the McDonald's All-American selections the year before had chosen 5 kids out of Texas. So, Kelly was basically, in my eyes, he should have, the next year coming up, he was a shoo-in. But I got wind that one of the guys who was on the board to make the decisions, he said that they didn't know if they were going to be able to take 5 more the following year, which was his year. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I wonder who's going to be the odd man out. Probably the kid that's not from here to begin with. Because, see, I never played the game the whole time I was there. I never took anything. I never compromised myself or compromised Kelly. I just did things my way, and that rubbed people the wrong way.
Yeah, you were a disruptor.
I maintained control. Therefore, I said, okay, let me one up the game anyway, because his high school coach already had plans for him to go to University of Texas. He had plans. You know what plans means, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing the high school coach grossly underestimated was the power that I had over my situation. Because his plans meant nothing to me. I had my own plans before we entered high school 3 years prior. So I called a friend of mine at Finlay Prep. I said, Kelly's on his way. He said, all right. So his 12th grade year, he left Texas. He spent at Finlay Prep. So instead of Houston scratching their head wondering if they're going to be able to take him along with the other 4 or however many they were going to take, I made it very easy for him because now he was the number 1 kid in Nevada and he was a shoo-in for the McDonald's All-American.
Jenga player.
Jenga. So I let them play in the court of public opinion, but I was trying to target the national and international media at that point.
Yeah.
I let them. So
You were the driver in the situation. You had control of where this was going.
Trusted advisor.
I love it. Okay, this is what I really wanted to get to. Again, thank you for your time. I have two really, really important questions for you. Because you have an unbelievable story. The both of you have an unbelievable story. When did you realize he's succeeded in Washington? He's succeeded in Phoenix. He's succeeding in Golden State on a bigger platform. When did you realize, oh, he's not just a player in this league, he can be special? When did you realize Kelly Oubre Jr. in the NBA could be special?
I realized that when there's always pushback with young men and their fathers. And I'm just going to stick to young men because he's my only child. And I noticed that when I advise parents right now with my business and I deal with young diamonds, I realize at some point the kid is going to push back and say, I got it from here, or you're overbearing, or, somebody might get in their ear and says, well, your parent has too much control. You need to pull away a little bit. Could be a girlfriend, could be a friend, could be a coach, could be somebody trying to gain control or gain favor with the young diamond or the kid to convince them that the parent is too controlling, or, maybe you should be your own man, so to speak. The shaming language kicks in. So I think when he got to Washington, I planned for that already, though, because it was a norm that I had seen so many times before. I had talked to so many pro daddies already that I was prepared. I couldn't become Jurassic as he ascended. I had to ascend with him. I had to be on a parallel journey with knowledge on my end, because I couldn't have a high school talk track with a college player, or I couldn't have a college talk track with a professional player. I had to have a professional conversation with a professional player and give him the leeway to grow and learn. And I liken it to, like, people ask me, it's like holding a tiger by the tail, but not holding him back. So get ready to go on the ride, but you're not going to slow him down. So don't try to. So Washington was tough. He got drafted. Randy Whitman, Coach Whitman, power to the coach. He was going through his own things at the time. He sat him on the bench and told him, don't look at me. I don't play rookies. Leave me alone. Okay. Which was a blessing, because with the 15th pick, all his guys, he knew he was as good as, I don't want to sound arrogant, Kelly, he knew he was as good as the guys that went 14 before him, all 14. So a lot of these guys had high expectations and were given starting jobs, and many of them have failed miserably since the 15 draft and have 1 foot out of the league if they're not going already. So it was a blessing because Washington did not have a G League team at the time. So he had to sit there and humble himself, which was good because he got some playing time in year 2. And I told him going into year 3, I said, they're not going to pay you here, so let's be prepared to leave. He says, what do you mean? I said, so the guy that's playing in front of you, I'm giving you homework to do because I don't want to drop names. The guy who's playing in front of you, he went to Georgetown. The owner went to Georgetown. The team vice president is a professor at Georgetown. The head of marketing for the Wizards was inundated with Georgetown. We played in Georgetown's arena. And the guy who was playing in front of him, his agent, had heavy ties to Big John Thompson, the daddy who coached Patrick Ewing's crew. So, Kelly, they're not going to pay you before they pay him. And quite frankly, they might not have enough money to pay you after they pay him and these other 2 guys. So let's just be prepared to use this as your elongated college experience. So I make a joke with him. I says, you went to Kansas, but you graduated from Georgetown. So it put the Phoenix thing in perspective, because that was a botched trade, because Memphis and Washington were doing a deal. And there may have been Phoenix, there was a third, Phoenix may have been a third team in there. They thought they were getting Dillon Brooks from Memphis, but Washington was under the impression that they were going to, Memphis was prepared to part ways with Marshawn Brooks.
Okay.
Washington thought they were getting Dillon Brooks. Okay. So that trade fell apart, but Kelly found out about that trade on the bus after a game.
Wow.
So did you hear his friends, his teammates? They're looking at him. He's looking at him. What you looking at? You just got traded. To where? You going to Memphis? Yeah, you're going to Memphis. But they messed up the names, Marshawn and Dylan, and that trade fell through overnight. The next day, Phoenix enters the picture, and they did an even trade, Trevor Ariza for Kelly Oubre. So Phoenix didn't even want.
Okay.
Yeah, Phoenix was just trying to do a salary dump with Ariza. They didn't even want Kelly to begin with. So I says, well, look, you're coming up on your second contract. So what we're going to do is, we'll go. We'll appreciate the experience, and the ownership was nice. They accommodated him, and they wanted to talk long-term contract. And I didn't see the long-term vision from the Suns, with regards to where they were trying to go, what they were trying to do. And I think that was by design by the organization because they kind of kept their cards close to the vest, which is cool. So they signed him for a 2-year deal, and he's in the second year of a 2-year deal right now. So, we appreciated the Phoenix experience, just like we appreciated the Washington experience, which prepared him for this experience because this is a bigger stage, brighter lights with more expectations because here is like these guys are more established. They're coming off championships. But a lot of them are, not the youngest guys in the world, but they still have a lot of market value. And the direction of the team, is a little more stable, let me just say that, than the last 2 teams he came from. And the expectations are higher. And whatever happens between now and the end of the year, we're ready for it based on his body of work in the past.
Right. Right. And what I've been so impressed with him brings me back to what we talked about earlier, what is his mentality and his ability to overcome. And that could be situationally, expectations. I know a lot of people are criticizing him with his jump shot, and he overcame that. And that all makes sense when you tell the story. And it's like, okay, that's how he's able to do it. And I think that is something you can't teach. Tom Brady was drafted, in the 6th round? Dak Prescott has a chip on his shoulder. Russell Wilson has a chip on his shoulder. LeBron James, all the greats and all these special players were overlooked. There was something that they had to overcome. And I think that journey and so many different obstacles is a blessing in disguise. And it's why you guys are as successful as you are.
Yes, yes. But I want to, definitely say with respect, because none of this comes to be if I was a guy who had to have it my way, or I was a slash and burn kind of guy, cursing people out, rah, 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 the crazy daddy. I didn't see the value in doing any of those things because it wasn't about me the whole time.
Right.
Because I wanted to teach Kelly how to be a businessman and to live with his decisions he's made throughout the business world and the business of basketball, as long as he can play this game that he loves so much or be inundated or he can be around the game he loves so much, then as far as I'm concerned, that's a win.
Right. Right. Now, let me ask you 2 powerful questions. The first one is someone listening to this. One thing I've noticed through podcasting is that each episode can touch someone differently. And I think a lot of people will be empowered by your message and your story. Do single parents, in your case, single father, do they get the credit they deserve? And for any single parents listening, what would be any word of advice to them?
First part, do they get the credit they deserve? It depends on what they're in it for. I was in it for my son to become a success. I don't care if he was the best garbage man in the world. But one thing about it is you can start off as a garbage man and you can end up owning the garbage company. So everything is a 3-dimensional approach for me. As far as I'm concerned, I do my janitor and CEO comparisons. The CEO is at the top of the building. Let's say it's a 10-story building. He's running the whole business. The whole building, they answer to him. CEO, everything. Oh, don't go to the penthouse unless you're serious, or the boss needs to see you because you're fired, yada, yada. But then, that's the 10th floor. First floor is the janitor. Cleaning the building, doing everything he needs to do on a daily basis, prompt on time. Shoes always shine. Let's say a fire breaks out one day on the 5th floor. Everybody in the building is scampering around trying to figure out how they're going to save themselves. When the fire breaks out, who are we calling here? We're going to call the CEO on the 10th floor, or we're going to call the guy with all the keys who knows the building?
The guy who has the keys.
Exactly. So who's the boss now? So it's all in how you deal with the situations and the respect that you walk into the situation with. That's the respect I try to maintain and keep, because I have nothing but the utmost respect for these team owners, these general managers. They have hard jobs. The coaches, they have very hard jobs. And they have somebody to answer to. But at the same time, you asked me about the single parent aspect of it. I need to be the best I can be at all times too. And I need to understand the business that he is in the midst of if I'm going to be an effective manager for him and my other clients. I need to know the business of basketball and basically the business of life, and to be there as a trusted advisor to go through those moments that I will have to refer back to strengthen and build them when they're broken. Because society doesn't take pity on you guys if y'all show promise. You can be a knucklehead and society will be happy to accommodate your antics. But if you show some promise and be serious about it, you're more inclined to be met with resistance, because you'll be more of an outlier. Success a lot of times is not appreciated until after you're gone. Then the aha moments kick in. Is like, oh, that's what he was trying to do. Oh, why didn't I think that? Well, actually, maybe it wasn't for you to think of, but at least you could have paid attention a little closer to what the backstory was that led to the moment in which you made a decision to write that person off as being crazy.
Right.
Because who else was crazy? Joe Jackson was crazy. Richard Williams was crazy. Earl Woods was crazy. Andre Agassi's daddy was crazy. There's a lot of crazy men, to your point, that you never really hear about because they weren't the guys doing the outlandish and crazy things.
Right.
So what is success to me? Kelly and the rest of my clients being very successful on the court, so I can appreciate them and have a conversation with them in real time as they segue into their young manhood, and build families and build growth. And your second question was what again? I'm sorry.
What advice would you give? Because I feel like, obviously there's a lot of people that may be in a similar situation, maybe not have an NBA player. They may just have a normal, a kid that just wants to pursue something differently. But for any single parents out there, I think will be very touched by this episode. And so what would be your words of advice for them in their situation?
You know what I would tell them? I would say simply, don't become Jurassic in the process. As your children have interests, nurture their interests. If they have multiple interests, nurture multiple interests. Never tell them how much things cost to get things done. I paid all this gas money and you came over here and you had a bad game. That's not their concern. I never threw that kind of stuff in Kelly's face. I was broke. Didn't matter. Got to make it happen. Just make it happen. So I would tell them to don't become Jurassic in the process. As their young athlete or their child is learning, they need to be learning too. But they need to be learning and putting things into perspective in a three-dimensional way so they could deliver information in real time when that child or that young athlete needs them the most. Not with the you to man speeches, but the information, the real information that can equate to success in that moment and success in the future. Because that makes the parent stronger or a clarifier, because you're a trusted advisor and you're a clarifier, or you're just a justifier who's somebody who just comes along at the 11th hour with a grandiose scheme on how they're going to get money out of the athlete. That's a justifier. Don't ever become a justifier, but you got to, as a clarifier or a trusted advisor to your young diamond or the athlete, you have to be true to yourself first. You can't be compromised. And if they can at least be that much in that situation for the duration of the marathon to that young athlete, then they will always be respected. They will always be in certain circles revered, they will always be the point of contact when it comes to doing business with a young athlete, because these athletes, people become one of many at a certain stage. People who always want something. I got family members that always want something. Now, once has anybody asked me, what can I do to help?
Right.
So I think if the parents do nothing else, but they grow along with the athlete, okay, they maintain who they are as a clarifier and a trusted advisor, they will realize that the payoff is the fact that you are not in the one of many class. You stand alone. You want to, trust me, in this business, you want to stand alone and not get inundated with the television camera and I do interviews all the time, but I keep my message very clear and precise. I operate with clean hands. I'll tell you the story like it played out. You can go verify all your little sources if you want to. That's fine. And if you want to do that, go do it. But I would tell them to make sure they stake their claim early so they can be the point of contact for the young athlete or the young diamond, because everybody else just becomes one of many at some point. And you don't want to be in that club, because a lot of those people are compromised already.
Right.
They got off debts, and they're going to use your kid or use you to use your kid to pay off the debt that they owe somebody. So.
Right. And now finally, again, thank you for your time, would be you're a Jenga player. You're a forward thinker. So let me ask you this. We'll document it now. You don't have to spill the beans necessarily, but what do you have coming up? What are some goals, dreams, aspirations that you have at this point for yourself and your son, Kelly Oubre Jr.?
As I was formulating his blueprint, I was formulating my own. I gave more time to his than mine, because mine would just fall in line and be organic, like with what I've been doing for the last 20 plus years. I've always talked to ball players. I've always talked to their parents. Some didn't listen. Some are calling me right now because they're in their senior year of college, thinking that it's a phone call at this point. And I have to remind them that, no, actually, you should have listened to me 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, because there are no more phone calls that can save your child right now. So he needs to be prepared for what the real world looks like. And hopefully we can work to get him something, or in a position where he's around the game, since he's no longer going to be playing the game. So I got a book coming out at the end of the year. And it's going to touch on a lot of things that could be beneficial to trusted advisors or clarifiers. It's going to touch on things that are beneficial to young diamonds who believe in themselves, because I don't want to promote so much of a one-itis mentality. I want to present some options to be around the game that they love for as long as possible, so it doesn't feel like work. That's the thing. Right. Like what you're doing, I applaud your efforts also, because you can talk about the game and it's almost like somewhat therapeutic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's easy to find common ground, because sports is one of the great equalizers that we know and love, that you can talk to somebody, you can keep politics off the table, you can keep nationality, you can keep stereotypes off the table. You can just talk about what you're both watching, because we see things differently, but there's common ground there. So at the book, expanding the business, of course, in various ways. I think we're venturing off into some corporate America, because I'm also, I had Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt training. I don't know if you know what that is. In the mid 90s, that's a production model that was set forth on an international scale, where, let me just give you an example. For every 1,000 doorknobs a company produces, they want to cut down the defective ones by as much as possible. Let's say for every 1,000, there's 1 or 2 that don't work.
Right.
That's what Lean Six Sigma was back in the mid 90s. And I think it's kind of a concept that I apply to how I deal with people and young athletes and diamonds. If I can develop the best business model that I can and present that to a young athlete and his trusted advisor, that is the premise for my business, because I want them to be as close to perfect as possible, but with all the right tools to be just that, though. Not just, we got a game on Saturday and I'll meet you at the gym on Saturday morning knowing we haven't practiced all week. No, it's not that. My thing is, we got work to do Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the game's on Saturday. That's Beast Developmental every step of the way. Delivering information in real time with anecdotes and real life lived experiences that can be used at any time to motivate, to lay a foundation, and to help build that personal player and his trusted advisor's own blueprint where they can grow parallel through the whole journey together and not just individually.
Right.
Because young athletes need somebody to talk to at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, when they had a horrible game.
Absolutely.
And that's the premise behind Beast Developmental. That's the direction we're going, and we're not going to deviate, because I know it's worked for us, and it's continuing to go, because this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Well, I'll tell you this. Kelly Oubre Sr., president of Beast Developmental, obviously father of Kelly Oubre Jr., author. I'm incredibly touched by your story. I feel like one thing I love about listening to podcasts is I choose specific podcasts to listen to, even when I work out. Now, I work out every day, and I don't even listen to music anymore. I listen to podcasts. I like to learn from so many different people. In this interview, I've learned so much, and I appreciate it. I support you and your son.
Thank you.
Anytime you want to come on the show, you're more than welcome, especially when you release your book. I appreciate you giving me your time and sharing your story with my audience.
All right. And if I could say something else to the parents, this thing, I don't know, I think a lot, I read a lot, and I came up with this saying, it's be there for every step of their journey and not for the convenient steps of your own. Okay. And just to ingrain that in the psyche of a parent or trusted advisor, because as a parent or trusted advisor, you have all the power at your fingertips. You can build up, you can destroy. But what you could also do is you could learn how to differentiate your approach when you deal with youngsters, because now you guys you like to text. There's FaceTime, there's text, there's Zoom calls, there's one-on-one interaction. And what's the other one? There's something else, some other form of communication. Hell, message in a bottle. Throw that in there. There are so many ways that we can communicate with each other that, as grown-ups, we need to learn to differentiate our approaches and let our egos go and be humble, but be respected at the same time. And if I learned every day that stuff that I knew was just a surefire way to get through, doesn't always work that way. So what I need to do is I need to understand that time must be my ally and not my nemesis, because it just might not be the right time to introduce what I need to say. Or I can differentiate my approach with a frontal, a flanked, or fragmented approach. I learned that in business school. Frontal, flanked, or fragmented. Frontal, just run straight through, tell them what you got to tell them and get out. Flanked, come around the side, whisper in their ear, then leave. Fragmented, give them little bits and pieces at a time.
I'm telling you, I'm fascinated with business. I'm actually going to school for business right now, finishing up. That's so interesting.
Put that in your book. And when you see people and you deal with people on a daily basis, I want you to learn, Zach, to gauge personalities. Respect the people enough to gauge their personalities. You can't paint everybody with a broad brush. And far too many times, I've been painted with a broad brush. That's why no one ever had intel on me, because coaches would call back to where you came from. Tell us about the daddy. Tell us about the daddy. We have nothing on him. He didn't take anything. We don't know what to tell you.
Clean hands.
Clean hands. And and it comes out in casual conversations when I'm talking to team owners, GMs. I can tell where they get their information from by the words they use when they talk to me. Because a lot of times they're just making phone calls, checking back on where you came from.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, I mean, maybe you heard something, and all I can be is who I've always been. And far too many times, I think me having not played the game, quote unquote, it makes it difficult for somebody in their position with their preconceived notions about me to try to justify why they feel how they feel. And I think, that frontal flanked or fragmented approach is something that I would like for you to incorporate into your daily life.
Will do.
To how you approach business, and just be true to yourself, and there's nothing wrong with doing it the right way. Trust me. I don't look around to see who else is doing it the right way, because it's not my concern. Some people compromise for their own personal reasons, and that's cool too. But they got to live with themselves, just like I need to live with myself.
Well, again, I appreciate you not only coming on my podcast, but sharing your story, providing so much information. I hope people listening can take something. Well, they certainly will take something from this. And I feel like this episode that has a lot for a little bit of everybody. And so I appreciate that. Where can people reach out to you? Is there any way they can contact you? Any way you can be available for anyone?
Yes, sir. Hit us up at Beast DevelopMental on all our social media networks or outlets. I'm sorry. At Beast DevelopMental. Definitely drop us a line if you have questions, you have concerns. If you want to talk about services, we're more than open to talk about that too. You deal directly with me. I don't have a representative to get my message across or 10,000 hurdles you got to jump over and through. My thing is I want to get to the business at hand as quick as possible and explain to people how much time they really don't have, because time it passes so quickly when it's involving young athletes that before you know it, if they're not recognized by the entry of high school or maybe year 1 or 2 of high school, they probably won't be on anybody's radar anytime soon. And it's pretty much, I don't want to say it's a wrap at that point, but the way these things are moving in our COVID era now have actually elevated and ramped up the fact that we don't have any summer ball circuits like we used to have for showcase events.
Limited
opportunity, exactly. So I think as parents or trusted advisors, or me at Beast Developmental, I have to be ready for the ever-changing climate, and I want to help them be ready too. So we're definitely here. And at Beast Developmental, drop us a line and let us know what you're going through. If you have any pain points you want to convert to PowerPoints, just let us know. We'll help you out.
Awesome. Thank you very much, sir. Best of luck of everything you're doing moving forward. And until next time, we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate it.